Hey there, folks! Exclamation point. Been thinking about the Black Myth Wukong PS5 exclusivity, and after seeing the performance review you made, I'm now fairly confident we have a Baldur's Gate 3 situation on our hands all over again. If it runs this poorly on a PS5 to the point we're seeing frame gen from 30 to 60 and still struggling occasionally, how on earth could an Xbox Series S run this game? Oliver, you did a lot of performance testing. What do you think?
Yes, I actually don't think it's an analogous situation because Baldur's Gate 3 had two different problems on console in my view. The first one specific to Series S and the other problem specific to all consoles that ran the game. On Series S, you had the split screen issue, which was presumably due to lack of memory, and that's kind of a harder limit than the kinds of limitations that I suspect game science would encounter with Wukong. And then there's also that issue in Act 3 with CPU performance. But Wukong does not appear to be badly CPU bound in general play outside of like traversal stutters. So achieving something in the vicinity of 68 on a consistent basis should be more possible here. Like the decision to use frame gen in particular with this title is just a very strange choice. So I don't really think that reflects on the power of the PS5 in this title. I don't think that's necessarily linked here. On Series S, I would expect the game would struggle a little bit more, but when you look at UE5 titles on Series S, there is a path to achieving decent visuals at decent performance levels on that engine, which is basically you turn off lumen reflections, you strip back settings, you make a ton of alterations behind the scenes under the hood, and you reduce the rendering resolution. And UE5 is actually in some ways a little bit more forgiving maybe than some other engines because it doesn't tend to be super, super, super heavy on VRAM. So it actually is often okay in terms of
Right.
scaling it to the Series S. Even like if you look at a game like Hellblade 2, I did a comparison piece on that on Series S versus X, and I had a hell of a time telling which one was rendering with better textures. That they looked very, very similar because of the texture streaming system in Unreal. So I imagine it doesn't help having to ship on Series S. It could well be the reason for the delay, but I wouldn't expect any like crazily undue out of left field kind of issues with Wukong outside of the issues that they may have imposed for themselves.
I was about
But
to
I
say
wouldn't
that.
yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect anything
Trip
like
over your
too
own
crazy.
feet while porting.
Yeah.
Like Oliver, I also see the Series S here not so challenged by this game. The PC also showed off options to scale things beyond resolution, I think very well. The low RT setting, for example, kept like generic world lighting. Apparently, reading online that if you set it to low, it does like cube map lighting with some sort of indirect shadowing system. Which I thought was interesting. And so there are ways to scale it, and we've seen other titles scale UE5, some better than others, but I don't think that is the issue here. I think they obviously are not the hugest studio, and they don't have the console experience, and I think it's one of the reasons is just the available market for the game isn't such PS5 territory things. If you look at the Steam situation, as well as, you want to just bid off what you can actually chew for the moment. And in this case, working on 4 separate versions of the game, including the fact that the PC version's multiple versions essentially in one. I think it's just reasonable to get the game out later, but I think Series S should probably be fine here as long as they don't make such strange decisions in the modes that they choose for the game.
Yeah, I was actually sitting in a cafe in Cologne when the video came in, and John and I sort of dipped into the YouTube channel to check it out before we put it live, and I was kind of mystified by some of the choices that were made. We're currently looking at seeing quality-wise what choices were made on the settings there relative to PC. And I'm very interested to see if there are just better choices to be. Well, it's obvious that there are
Yeah.
better choices to be made there in terms of getting a better game. The 30 FPS mode should be 30 FPS. That's pretty much a given. A balance mode at 45 FPS was bizarre. There isn't any kind of display out there that's compatible with a PlayStation that would give you a consistent result there. Kind of baffling. Performance mode using frame generation from 30 to 60, and it having problems there even, that's just fundamentally a bad idea. It feels like an afterthought almost. It shouldn't be done. I mean, AMD this is the problem when technologies like FSR2 and frame generation come along. There are clear guidelines given by AMD, but some developers just ignore them. You've got to have a high base frame rate to work with frame generation. I don't think that's too much to ask for. So the idea that you don't have that and you just use it anyway, it's just not a good idea, particularly when one of the key points of having a performance mode is lower input lag, and this actually raises it quite noticeably.
Mm-hmm.
Not great, but maybe the Xbox version is a chance to actually revisit those choices and come up with better ideas for all console versions.
There's historical precedent for that, by the way, with Bloober's masterpiece on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. What's the name of that game?
The Medium.
The Medium, where the PS5 version has completely different optimization choices, better ones. But they never, I don't think they backported it to Xbox Series X.
No, that's slightly problematic. Yeah.
I hope Game Science can fix the PS5 version before the Xbox version. I mean, it's like a five-alarm fire.
It's not actually, fundamentally challenging things that we're asking for there. So,
no, I don't think so.